All right, good evening. A new week, a new case on The Last Word. There's always something to demystify, a lie to check, and some half-truths to debunk here and there. Tonight, here at The Last Word, we investigate the most important question, free education in this country. A huge promise has been made by a series of governments suggesting basic education is free. In essence, you as a parent should be paying a single coin. Is that what you believe that to be? But that's the promise. So, how free is the free education? And what's the quality of education following that question? Well, at it, why do we even educate ourselves in the first place? Is it possible to make sense of it all? With me on the panel is Sharon Mumani, a journalist of over a decade and a half. She has covered virtually most important stories in this country. Eric Latif, a journalist of note. He prides himself on asking hard questions and the fact checker of The Last Word. Also, the Gen Z on the show, feminist and speaker of truth, Zaha Indimuli, as you can see her. And I'm James Smart. Good evening, everyone. Well, this is The Last Word. Let's start where we should. Of course, it's been a long week. I haven't seen none of my panelists. Let me start with Zaha. What has been disturbing you?
Well, speaking of promises, my hot button of the week is a promise outlaid by President William Ruto on reducing the cost of government, ensuring that Kenya has austerity measures to keep in place, that we don't need to be borrowing too much. But before I continue, let's listen to the president.
I have also given instructions to the Ministry of Finance that yes, we will go to the market, and if we find that in the market we cannot find money at 10%, we will go back and relook at other sources. It's not possible for us to borrow at beyond 10%. Anything 12, the last borrowing that we did was at 14%. That is unacceptable. And that's the trajectory we are going. I don't know whether it is good news.
Unacceptable completely. But let's take a look at the biggest spender in government. The baseline June budget for the State House was 9.4 billion. About 2 supplementary budgets after, totaling to around 12 billion Kenyan shillings. We cannot borrow, of course, and stretch Kenyans when there's already an enduring painful tax. There's already budget cuts on public services that matter. Having called for frugality with that much anger, how are we still prioritizing luxury, questionable constructions, and fundamental sectors that require this money are grappling with underfunding? That is my hot button of the day.
You've been thinking about it for a long time.
I think about it every day. Every day.
Latif.
Must really be burning you, right?
Yeah.
My hot button is still touching on the president, but I want to start the story from Kilifi County. This weekend, we saw the news emerging from Kilifi County, a place called Chakama Ranch, where police and locals and journalists went to this ranch, found 4 emaciated people, found the body of a man who'd been buried there, and these emaciated people were appearing to have been starving themselves. Does that ring a bell? Yes. Chakama is not far from Shakahola, where we know such things were happening 2-3 years ago. Now, what is disturbing is that this appears to be a new cult that's emerging. But is it really a new cult? It's not. We've had stories of cults in this country even after Shakahola. We had a story around March coming from Homa Bay about a church where people are going to be prayed for, they end up dying, and they end up being buried in that church. That's not really the issue. The issue here comes back to the president. In 2023, journalists went to State House to interview the president. I was there. Lofty Matambo was there. And Lofty asked the president directly whether he'd take responsibility for what had happened in Shakahola. And this is what the president said.
Hii jambo
na ndio nimeweka jopo mara mbili. Jambo la kwanza nimeweka jopo ambayo tunaita Judicial Commission, ifuatilie uhalifu na ituambie ni nani zembea kazini ndio haya mambo yakatokea. Na huyu bwana washirika wake ni nani? Haya makaburi yaliendelea vipi? Hii mambo yote yalitendeka vipi?
Now, in that, the president actually said that he is apologizing on behalf of the government to the people of Kenya for all the failures within government that allowed this to happen. He said he's promising a commission of inquiry, a judicial commission of inquiry, and a task force. He actually appointed a task force led by the Reverend Dr. Mutava Musyimi that was going around to look at what needs to be done to regulate religion. In July last year, the Reverend Dr. Mutava Musyimi and the members of the task force presented a report to the president, and among the recommendations here were self-regulation of religious entities that are required then to join umbrella organizations which would help in monitoring the activities of each religious entity. There was mixed reaction, of course. Some Kenyans saying this is the way to go. Some sections of clergy in particular vehemently opposing regulation. The Reverend Dr. Mutava Musyimi earlier this year spoke and said, if we don't implement this report, we are likely to see another Shakahola come into last weekend, and we're in Chakama. I want to say that the responsibility for the implementation of this particular report lies with the appointing authority. President William Ruto, you appointed the task force. It brought you a report. That report is gathering dust. Mr. President, you've got a responsibility to make sure that this report is implemented, at least discussed, because this time it's about lives. Implementation of the Dr. Reverend Mutava Musyimi report will save lives, literally. I'm Eric Latif. That's my hot button.
Eric, there's questions.
Ask.
Why are we laying this squarely on this president, this government? We've always had cults. Always. It's been there. I mean, it's a national problem. The way I think we have a faith problem. We have a problem on confronting, in a sense, how faith interacts with politics. And we're asking this president to take political responsibility over it.
He already took political responsibility. And he said that I am taking this responsibility as the president. And in fact, it appointed majopo mangapi? Majopo mawili. Moja, commission of inquiry. La pili, a task force. He actually did it. Okay? The ultimate responsibility lies with him as the appointing authority of this task force to make sure that this thing that is implemented.
What happens when the faith leaders, church leaders, whatever it is, create a problem and say we don't want to be self-regulated for whatever reasons, and they have the reasons why they don't want to be self-regulated?
Because hope is expensive.
It costs money.
Hope costs money, therefore it requires accounting.
So they don't want accountability for it. The Musyimi task force went around the country, spoke to some of these clergy members and others and other members of the public, and they discussed it. The point is, there's a report. Can we see movement of this particular report? We don't see movements of reports.
Right. And I guess there's action plans that came out of it. How do you regulate, or how do you help people out of being vulnerable to manipulation, which I guess usually forms the core of this kind of cults. On my hot button tonight, I'm reflecting about a deep concern about the welfare of patients, particularly patients battling mental illnesses. And I'm speaking about this coming off of the case of Dr. Susan Toto. You may be aware of her case. Recently died tragically after being admitted into a mental health facility. It was a forced admission, and that's what I wanted to talk about, the legislation of mental health care in the country. And no doubt we have come from a very far place. We have made strides in legislating and creating care for patients who need attention mentally. And one of the things that really we have tried to cure in this country and globally really is the conflating of mental health illnesses with criminalization. And for context, the very first legislation that we had in this country, which was the English Mental Health Act in 1959, this particular legislation was under the control of the Inspector of Prisons. Now, you can imagine what that does in terms of the dignity of patients of mental health care. Whilst we've come so far, the most recent act that we are working with in the country is the 2022 Mental Health Amendment Act. But there is a particular clause that might need to be looked at with sharper eyes. This is Section 14 of the Mental Health Act, Amendment Act of 2022. And this section particularly is designed to allow the temporary treatment of individuals that are deemed to be incapable of consenting, and thus allowing for involuntary admission. And there's no doubt that there were positive and well intentions around this, because there are cases where caregivers are not able to handle. But with that, there are questions that are rising, there are concerns that are rising. Are there loopholes that then would allow for mental health patients to be abused? Are there instances where they are taken in for treatment where they don't need to? And where does that then leave us in terms of regulating these spaces? And of course, we have worked so hard to inculcate human rights into the legislation of mental health and looking at the care and rights of patients at the heart of this legislation. But then, how do we ensure that these very provisions that we have provided, designed to take care of these people, do not become the very instruments that cause harm? That's my hot button.
That quickly reminds me of how, in the spaces I've been, how mental health stigmatization has really fueled discrimination around this space. And as much as there's still freedom to look at how mental health patients are supposed to be well treated and very much accommodated, there's a very thin line between using it against the patients, to silence, to erase them, to push back on them, and especially for an oversight authority that would make sense at that point, to look at the difference between when you're brought in and what qualifies you to be somebody who cannot speak for thyself. Those lines are very thick, and you can only imagine how it stretches out to more marginalized communities.
Exactly. And some of the measures that the advocates, mental health advocates, are proposing are, one, oversight, that there is a timely oversight in cases where a patient has to be forcefully hospitalized, that there is an independent oversight, and not just independent, but also timely, that if a patient is taken in, say, on Tuesday night, how much time then can somebody else come and verify the circumstances under which this person was put to hospital, and also really verifying that they were incapacitated to a point of not being able to give their personal consent, that these measures then would ensure the safety and the rights of this person is at the core of treatment.
I've got a question here.
Yeah.
Are we taking away the professional responsibility of the medic who would admit such a person to an institution? Because it's a professional medic who will actually admit this person into an institution. Right. This person is independent. They are professional. They work under the guidelines of their profession, and they are regulated by their profession.
I mean,
you know what? This feels like a question that a professional should answer. Because it's a hot button. It's Sharon's hot button. Let's not put her to task to answer this question. Well, we have a professional in the house, Professor Tweli, which I don't want to ask him now. I know he's burning, and look at him, he's burning to answer this question. We promised to have this discussion at some point. But can I go to my hot button of the week? Yes. I'll start with patients, and this name, Kennedy Kalombo-Tole. I don't know if it rings a bell, but this week, the DCI told us a gentleman called Kennedy Kalombo-Tole is the prime suspect of the brutal murder of a patient at KNH. The patient's name is Kennedy Mwangindagwa, who was in Ward B, 7B. He was murdered on the 17th of July. This is what happened, according to the DCI. At around 11:30 p.m., a nurse took vitals. At around 12:30 p.m., another nurse came, checked the blood pressure, took vitals. At around 1 a.m., a relative came, saw the patient, he was fine. At 2 a.m., a cleaner noticed blood from the bedside. And the cleaner approached the bed, and to the shock and horror of this cleaner, so the neck of the patient had been slit. Now, the blood stains leads to Kalombotole bedside. The same night, the police are called, of course. They investigate, and they find this gentleman sleeping soundly. Now, I have questions. Now, 5 months before, a similar incident occurred at the same hospital. Another patient, again in the 7C, Ward 7C, another patient brutally murdered, gets killed. This gentleman, Kennedy Kalombotole, is the prime suspect. Now, the wards do not have CCTV. We don't know how often the nurse do their rounds. But most importantly, this gentleman, our prime suspect, has been in hospital since 1st December 2024. I'm not sure what kind of illness this man has. But according to the DCI, they didn't have enough evidence then. But this time, the evidence, believe you me, was blood coming from slippers that took the hospital staff, and the DCI led them to the prime suspect who was sleeping soundly. So here we are with questions. 2 murders, space of 5 months, and a suspect who's a patient. I don't know what to think about this.
It has to be like a big headline for a mystery series. Oh my. The patient assassin.
A patient assassin.
Don't quote me though. I know this is an active case, so we don't know. We can only draw the similarities to these cases, that it's happened in a short while, and that there was evidence, there's footprints leading right to his bed. This is a very mysterious case.
And also,
Or
to
is
be
it?
admitted for a year.
Or is it?
Almost a year.
A patient kills a patient type of scenario. You'd think these are movie sceneries, but then Kenya it is.
All right, but we just don't all have issues that established this week. I mean, if someone were to move away from Kenya and come after 2 weeks, and I told the events that have happened in a week, you'd be like, that sounds almost improbable, almost impossible. I do have people in the audience. Let me start with the lady on the right here with the microphone. Please tell us your name. Is there anything that's disturbed you this week?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Wakili Farida Wakio. I come from Geshogo constituency, and I'll be going for Member of Parliament in 2027. So, this is Kenya. My hot button of the week would be the so-called conclave, the national dialogue. And it has placed me in a position where I'm wondering, why does the Constitution need, or constitutional matters, why do they need a dialogue? Because I don't have a problem with the dialogue itself. I'm concerned about the outcome of that dialogue. Because if you've been paying attention to the trends of our politics in the nation, every dialogue or every attempt at a dialogue always ends up at patronage, clientism, and tokenism. So we will see, let me play it out for you. We'll see a situation where people sit at the table, they will ask for participation from various groups, the people that they think need to be involved in this process. And the outcome of the process is going to be that some people are going to be given certain positions, some in the Constitution, some not in the Constitution. Then the people that were championing for the constitutional violations are now the people that will be seated at the table. The people that will now be seated at the table have to practice table manners. You cannot speak while you're eating. And we are left without people to fight for the Constitution. So my hot button of the week, or my last word in this particular matter, is the Constitution does not need a dialogue. Yeah. The language of the Constitution is very clear, and the Constitution has the ability of even solving things that they are appearing to be futuristic in the sense. Yes.
Fantastic. So the Constitution should dialogue with itself. This is a very brilliant. I mean, Wakili has used very big words, right? Patronage, clientism, appropriation. My goodness, it's the last word, just to break down all the three things. There's a gentleman with the microphone on the right. Your name, please. What has disturbed you this week? What's your hot button?
Good evening. My name is Ngugi Ndegwa, Executive Director for the Ustawi KE, Thika constituency resident. And my hot button for today, and what is bothering me today, is what and the events that we have seen in the past week and this week, where the state has turned our youth into agitators, and in the process labeled them terrorists, and we have seen that without evidence per se. And this is bothering me because I wonder to what extent we are going to turn our youths into what they are not, while the government should be focusing itself in ensuring that these young people go to school and these young people get a good education and go and get good jobs and help the nation to build the nation. We have instead focused ourselves into destroying these futures, that we have destroyed the future leaders and we have destroyed what we would have called the leaders of today and tomorrow and turned them into what they are not. And so it is bothering me because we are moving backwards instead of moving forwards. That in a day like today, when the parents of our day should be advising and guiding us on how to build the nation,
Right.
the children are instead advising the parents on how to build a nation. That the children of today, myself included, are advising the president of the day on how to live and to lead constitutionally. And that is what worries me today. Thank you so much. I am worried for our future and for the future of this country.
Right. Bothered by it. Very well, aptly put. Latif.
You know, we come into a segment now where we call it the NTV Fact Check. Whenever you come across news and information, how do you know whether what you're consuming is the truth or it's not? How do you debunk the truth? How do you fact check what you've heard or what you've seen? We're going to have an exercise now with the audience, and where we're going to ask ourselves, what do we see? What do we hear? How do we know whether it's the truth or whether it's false? I'm going to have us play one video. And in this video, we have the MP for Kiharu constituency, who is the immediate former chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee of the National Assembly. And he talked soon after IPRA gazetted the new fuel prices across the country. Let's all take a look at this video. But before we do that, you have the cards, right? Green and red. In the fact check, it's about you also participating. When you see this bulletin, the clip that we're going to play, I'll ask you, is it true or is it false? True, green. False is? Very good. Let's play the clip.
Going up yesterday drastically. And the explanation that was given by government is not accurate. Because blaming the
at some point. In this particular clip, the MP Ndende Nyoro came soon after April had gazetted the new fuel prices, and he talked about a couple of things, and I want you to listen to this. He said that one of the reasons why the fuel prices are not coming down is because of an increase in the road maintenance levy fund. And the levy has been increased by 7 shillings. And he says that this government has clandestinely introduced this levy. The keyword here is secret introduction of the levy. The second bit that I want you to listen to is what he talks about how this contributes to the increase in fuel prices. And the third bit that I want us to listen to is what he says, how much in a liter of fuel and how much you pay in a liter of fuel goes into taxes and levies. Let's play that clip again.
We saw the fuel prices going up yesterday drastically, and the explanation that was given by government is not accurate, because blaming the global oil prices is falling short of what the reality is. Because last year, for the last 1 year, the highest fuel prices we have seen were actually in June 17th of 2024. And in this calendar year, the highest prices we have seen were actually in January. But having said that, it is important for us to know that out of what Kenyans pay at the pump in terms of fuel prices, around half of that money is in terms of taxes and levies. Over 80 shillings of what people pay for petrol prices, over 80 shillings goes into taxes and levies. And of what Kenyans pay for other products of fuel other than petrol, over 76 shillings again goes into taxes and levies. in an oil-producing country like Kenya, the only tool a government is left with is altering the levies and taxes. This is where the problem is. The government of Kenya actually added a new levy last year of 7 shillings in the fuel prices. And how the government works is that time when the fuel prices are coming down, actually that's the reason why Kenya's never failed the global deceleration of the oil prices. Because it's around that time that the government introduced a secret 7 shillings in fuel levy. That is partly one of the problems why the fuel prices are going up. But the more unfortunate bit is that this year, the government has taken that 7 shillings, taken to the banks as security, and then they have taken a loan of 175 billion shillings. This money is not reflecting in the government books as a debt. And therefore,
that's the bite you've just heard from the MP for Kiharu Ndindi Nyoro, okay? Now, there are a couple of things that he has said here, and I want us to go one by one here. One, he says that there's a secret introduction of 7 shillings per litre on the fuel levy, and then the government went and used this as security to take a loan of 175 billion shillings. You heard that? The second bit is that this is among the causes for why the fuel prices remain high. You heard that? And then that the taxes and levies account for over 80 shillings per litre of super petrol. Now, take your cards. Claim number 1, that there's a secret 7 shillings per litre introduced, and this has been used to take a loan. A secret is the word here. True or false? True, false, true. So we've got a couple of truths, we've got a couple of false. Okay, second claim, that this is the reason why the fuel price remains high. True or false? Commit. True or false? Many truth. All right, so raise it higher, be confident. That the taxes and levies in a litre of fuel are very high. In fact, for super petrol this month, whenever you're paying for a litre of fuel, about 80 shillings or thereabouts goes into taxes and levies. True or false? Raise. Quite high, confidently. Come on, let's see. Okay. So you've got a couple of truths, a couple of falses. Let's debunk them. Number 1, let's look at the issue of taxes and levies. The fuel breakdown, when EPRA announces the new fuel prices every 14th of the month, they also come in with the calculations. And for this current month, this is what we have. When a vessel carrying fuel lands at the port of Mombasa, the landed cost, for example, for super petrol, is 81 shillings and 88 cents. Storage and distribution, transporting it via pipeline, maybe to Nairobi and the other depots. For Nairobi, 4 shillings and 70 cents. Oil marketing companies' margins, that is how much the oil marketing companies are allowed to charge in terms of their margin, 17 shillings and 39 cents. Taxes and levies, 82 shillings and 33 cents. And that's why for a litre of super petrol in Nairobi, when you pay 186.31, taxes and levies are 82 bob. And how much was it when it landed in Mombasa? 81 shillings and 88 cents. So the claim by Ndindi Nyoro that the taxes and levies are a problem in the price of super petrol is therefore true or false? True. Okay. The second issue is on the secret introduction of the 7 shillings levy. Now, in November last year, well, earlier in July last year, the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport had started the proposal of raising the road maintenance levy from 18 shillings to 25 shillings. Of course, finance bill happened, all those things were rejected. But in November, it was introduced as a regulation by EPRA and it was gazetted. And it went to Parliament and Parliament approved the increase by 7 shillings in the road maintenance levy. Parliament. Ndindi Nyoro is a member of? Okay. The government also explained that this money is going to be used, the extra 7 shillings, to go and place at security so that they can borrow the money that will be used to settle some pending bills. So the 7 shillings is actually being used as a security because the money has been borrowed to a tune of 175 billion shillings to pay some pending bills. So the claim here that there is a fuel 7 shillings introduction of the levy is true or not true? True. Was it secret? No. So the claim by Ndindi Nyoro that it was secret is therefore false. False. Final point. Is this secret introduction and use of the 7 shillings as security for a loan the reason why fuel prices have not come up, have not gone down? The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has said absolutely not. The Director General Daniel Kiptoo said the fuel price increase is due entirely to global market factors, including high international landing costs, not because of domestic hidden levies or debt securitization. We have not seen any element there that goes into debt securitization, or we have not seen anything called a hidden levy, because all the levies are open. So the claim here by Ndindi Nyoro that this secret levy that has been used as security for a loan is therefore false. And that is how we debunk. This is the last one. Let's take a break. When you come back, the question is free education free or not? Free for green, not free red. Is it free or not? Oh, people, surely. Is free education in this country free or not? Is it free? Is it not? Is it free? Let's take a break. Come back and we answer that question.
All right, welcome back to the last one. Let's just get right into the thick of things. Well, we've gathered here today, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss one important question. How free is the free basic education? All right? Could be a trick question, but really is how important for us to discuss the freeness of the basic education. It has components to it. So let's first understand the constitutional guarantees. Why do we even discuss this question? Well, Article 53 of the Constitution talks about a few things that we should bear in mind. It says and underline that free and compulsory basic education, that is what the Kenyan people have offered themselves, have offered as a guarantee that we need this. But even before this constitution, the Kenyan people in 2003 started this process already. The Mwai Kibaki government started the famous basic free primary education, which brought in about 1.5 million new children into the school education system. And then we're trying to sort out the problem of how do we make sure that we achieve what we collectively think as a people is important, to educate ourselves, to make sure that we guarantee education so that certain things can happen. And we are hoping to discuss those certain things that need to happen for all of us. So it's always been important historically why we should have education to be accessible. And the quality of education is important. And the final thing is the why we educate people also important. It's always been clear for us. So it's not just a constitutional subtext that clever people called lawyers put together, or experts sat down someplace and agreed we should have free basic education or free education, however you want to call it. We thought to ourselves that it's important that we have this. So there's context to it. So as we answer this question, and as we get into this debate, it's important for us to understand those two things, that constitutionally we are bound to have free, compulsory, basic education. But also, as a famous person would say, irregardless, we would still have this free education. But let's set up this discussion this way. Very quickly, let's start with a lived experience, perhaps the Gen Z on the panel, to just explain to us a beneficiary of this free basic education. Let's see if it has really worked. Zaha.
Funny enough, when you're in a position such as mine where you have to bring some sort of intelligence to your very small age, but then I'm very much a product of the free primary education, FPE. And I remember it was launched in 2003. How I remember, I was actually 2 years old by then. But
You remember that's 2 years old?
Yes. Well, one of the few things that I think I do recall, that's when I actually got there, there was an impulse. That was around 1.5+ million children overnight heading to school, which was very significant considering the fact that the architecture around bringing free education during Kibaki's time was to necessarily initiate access to that education in the first place. So by the time we had that, of course, the reduction of literacy rates. I was in a national school whereby the experience was more, not only did I get a chance to access education, but I also got a chance to meet everyone from everywhere. And so that, cohesion in the school was very fantastic because, again, I kept meeting people that I've never met before, different accents. And I don't know how we talk about it here, but for us, I think that's where tribalism ended because I met everyone. Yeah. Translating that to the fact that, of course, it was, had a couple of challenges. We were overcrowded. Number one, there was a strain in the infrastructure from the dormitories to the dining hall, the amount of queues. Any Gen Z remembers those lines from the beginning to the east to west type of lines for food. And then quality concerns because the ratio of teacher to student was equally something that we needed to look at. And it would stem from the fact that we would do an exam and before you get those results, it's, very many business days. And that's when you used to have some teachers also, because of that type of incapacity, asking their friends to mark exams for them. So you can notice that the handwritings of the people who marked your papers, starting from index 1 to the last one, it's like around 4 people. And it would make sense because, again, we were like 40 to 100 students rationing to one teacher. So I think the architecture behind it was absolutely perfect and significant. But as we move forward then, where did we lose the blanks? And then at the same time, I think it's gotten expensive over time because from primary up, when I finish, I'm still in university. And sometimes you sit down with my parents and we're like, okay, this bill is funny now.
So that's lived experience. Zaha.
Yes, and I'm wondering about the real spirit of the free education and how the government has costed this, because what we are hearing a lot lately is parents, households who are struggling to take their children to schools, albeit being free as we know it. And at this point, I'd want to bring in my colleague, the lead for the Education Hub at Nation Media Group, that's David Muchunku, just to help us understand, right from the free primary education to the free day secondary education, right up to now, there's been a number of reforms, we've changed the curriculum and all that. Are we costing these reforms? How are we costing it? What comes from the government? We hear this word capitation thrown around all the time. Just to understand, what does it cost to actually educate a Kenyan child, right from when they step into school in a public institution, and how is this budgeted? And then where are we finding the deficit? Muchungu.
Thank you, Cheryl, because of that. If we could start with because the Constitution speaks about free and compulsory basic education. That means primary school, now we have junior school and secondary school, which from next year will be referred to as senior school. So if you look at the costing for primary school was costed in 2003 at 1,420 shillings per year per student. That was in 2003 when Zaha was 2 years old. And that is still the same cost that we have attached to primary education up to today. Back then, that was 844. Now we have CBE. I think we need to ask ourselves, should we cost CBE the same way we used to cost 844? Then, when we come to junior school at least was introduced 2 years ago, so it's a fairly new segment. The government has attached a cost of 15,042 shillings. Then when it comes to secondary school, and this is where most parents really feel it, is because the government contribution, what it budgets for, or rather what they call the capitation, is 22,244 shillings. But then, if you take your child to a national school, you will be expected to pay 53,554, which is for boarding and other expenses. And of course, as you know, most of the students want to go to national schools. Extra county schools that fall under category A, which is almost as national schools, they will also pay the same amount. But then when it comes to county schools and sub-county schools, the ones we call day schools, those ones ideally are supposed to be, no, before I go to the county schools, the extra county schools, the government again pays a capitation of 22,000. It's supposed to pay 22,244. And then the parents pay 40,535.
All right. So most of these are what are supposed to be coming from the government.
What is supposed to be paid.
Right.
And the reason why we're asking now the question whether education is free or not is because when you speak to many parents, they will tell you they've been asked to pay some other money, which is at times contentious. The Ministry of Education now and then gives guidelines, issues circulars that any extra levies are illegal, but is that the reality on the ground? Then when you speak to the teachers, they will say that the money that the government has given them is not enough. And that is why, I don't know if you can look at what has been the requirement, what has been budgeted for, and what is finally given to the schools, and then that balance.
So
that
you have to say, I mean, a few things. First, David is of Chungu, is our editor for education at the Nation Media Group, so he knows his stuff. For that, you know, that's a fact, by the way. You should put up your blood. And then secondly, he's a former teacher, so really, of course, he knows what he's talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And I think you've raised very important questions.
Okay, let's go to another teacher, but former SG, Nat Wilson Sosion. To this same question, how free is free primary education? Based on the numbers that we've been given and where we sit today, what would you say?
Yes, that is a debatable question. But first, let us understand the origin of free education in this country. And it arose from the global conference, the EFA goals of the year 2000, the framework of action in Dakar, Senegal. And it was implemented here in Kenya by President Kibaki through the pressure of teachers. It was out of political impulse. It was not anything that was in any manifesto. And I remember we as teachers, we asked Kibaki, can you ensure that there's free education and teachers are also paid pending salaries? And that is when 1,000 shillings was approved in the year 2000. It was not 1,400. The 400 was revised later during Uhuru administration to raise it upwards. And that saw the influx of so many children coming to school. That opened up the access. That improved the enrollment in our schools. The first thing you do is to open access. Then you work on matters of quality. The rest there then has been very historical. From free primary, it graduated to affordable secondary. Kibaki took it up to affordable secondary from the year 2007. And that is where the tuition aspect of learning was fully capitated and funded after 2007. Then the flagship on education in any election by any regime has been a key thing. By Uhuru in 2013 and 2017, and by President William Ruto in 2022. So when I look at it comparatively, because I've been the president of EI, in Africa Education International, Kenya gradually has continued to allocate more resources to education. The only thing that we need is accountability and transparency. There are a lot of roots of corruption all through, from the source of release of money to where it is utilized in school. That's a fact. And the accounting system and the auditing system is so weak. Because when you look at Kenya, we are now doing 5.9% of the GDP to education, when international recommendation is minimum 6%. We are doing almost 28% of the overall budget. And this year's budget is at 702 billion. So that gradually, as the GDP and budgeting goes up, allocation to education should also go up. So generally, I would say Kenya is committing sufficient resources to education. We only need to ensure that there are accountability structures and proper directing of resources to benefit the learner. And we reduce wastage within the distribution chain of the money.
All right.
And I think basically that is where we are. I was in the Kilemi Mwiria task force that was setting fees for secondary schools. And I think for secondary schools, we must distinguish boarding services and a number of over boarding schools. And it takes up about 24% of the overall population in our secondary schools. But those who are fully capitated through day schools are 74%. It's a very significant number. So to me, I would say Kenya is on the right trajectory in delivering free education in terms of funding. And when it comes to teachers, because that is one area of indirect charges, and that is where we safeguard quality. And I think we should clap for me for fighting for more teachers in 2011. We got 23,000. That was at 235,000. And we signed an agreement that has now seen the role of teachers in the teaching service rise to 400,000. That is almost double.
I don't want to finish your points, because I want to come back. I want to come back to you.
Because teacher investment is a key.
Please, give Dr. Manyasa the microphone. I don't want to finish your points. Do you share the same optimism, and would you end up clapping for Wilson Sossion? Say we are doing fantastically well. The problem is elsewhere. The problem really is not the budgeting. The problem is elsewhere. Do you share the same optimism?
Thank you. First, I'm a trained economist, so I don't believe that anything that has value can be free. What we have tried to implement in Kenya is publicly funded basic education. And have we funded public education fully from the public coffers? No.
We haven't.
The figures that are available show government expenditure in our education is 54% of the cost of education in Kenya. And parents are footing 38% of that cost of education. And development partners and other philanthropies are footing 8% of the cost of education. Those are figures that cannot be disputed. If you go to the Ministry of Education, they'll give you those facts. And I can explain to you how this comes about. 25% of our teachers in this country are not employed by TSC. They're employed by boards of management. Who pays them? The parents. Yeah? Because even when government sends all capitation to schools, the capitation money is budgeted to the last shilling. And there is no shilling for paying BOM teachers. So parents pay 25% of the teachers.
That's a cost to parents?
Yes.
All right.
Through the boards of management. So are we implementing what we are calling free education fully as we claim? No. What I think needs to happen is for there to be much more transparency. To sit down and say, this is how much it will cost to offer quality education to every Kenyan child. Because that is our constitutional promise to the Kenyan children, that we shall offer each child quality education. After we have seen how much it will cost to offer every child quality education, let government put the figures that it has on the table. And say, this is what we have, these are the items we shall prioritize to spend the amount that is available on. Whatever remains, let us mobilize. Let's create a framework that allows other actors to participate in funding education and tell them this is how we want to prioritize the things that need to be funded.
Okay.
Because of the lack of that framework, we've had cases of overlaps. So that private sector is spending money on education on things on which already government is spending money, and there is duplication and wastage. We have children who are going to school who don't pay fees, but who at the end of their 4 years in secondary school, they have overpayment of fees, and the parent is hassling the school head to give them reimbursement of money they didn't pay, because there is no framework and there is duplication and in some cases wasted.
Okay. We've heard from a teacher, economist. Please hand the mic to Professor Atwoli, who's the Dean Aga Khan School, University. Here's the thing, Prof. This Sossion tells us it's debatable whether it's a question of, if we put more money, is free really free? The economist says, well, actually that is the wrong question. It's the quality question and we should cost it. How should we be looking at this question?
I want to agree that free is a misnomer, and perhaps we shouldn't have written that anywhere in our constitution, because it gives a wrong impression and it makes the policy maker or the pass holder think that free means I don't have to spend too much on it. I think, yeah, because we said it's free. Do we ever talk about free national security? I want somebody to tell me where they have seen a policy on free national security. Free legislature, free national executive,
free presidency.
Free presidency.
Yes.
Everything has a cause.
So basically we have no show.
So I think
we should go home.
I think our problem is a problem of language. Words have power, and words give birth to actions. So when we wrote free basic education, the pass holder said that's free. I don't have to budget too much for it. And yet the parent of the child was also thinking, this is free, I don't have to pay anything. The result is that the pass holder budgets a little, the parent carries a burden, and we're still going to development partners to bridge the gap. We're asking churches and other people to also chip in and so on. So free is a misnomer. And I will say, if anybody offers you anything and tells you this thing is free, look for the hidden cost. So if we really get free education in this country, it will mean there's something happening inside your brain that you're paying for that education. Because education is a form of indoctrination. And I've always asked, why do we have an education system? Nobody has answered me yet. What is the philosophy of the Kenyan education system?
Please help us.
Why do we take our children to school? Because I could decide I don't want my child to go into this education system. I want my child to stay at home and I will teach them my ways. But we have mandated that people will go to school in this country.
Right.
But we don't have a reason why. The reason why we take our children to school is because a colonialist came and said, you must go to school. And we have never stopped. We have never stopped to interrogate why. For the colonialist, it was very important that you go to school so that you learn his language, and so that you get into his industries, and so that you work for him at a certain level. And it was limited. But after independence, we never interrogated and said, maybe we need to stop and think again why we should take our children to school. So we are continuing that colonial legacy of just go to school, mwisho wa kusoma, utapata kazi nzuri sana, which is a complete fallacy. So my final point here is that free is a misnomer. It is tax funded, and we should put it in there as a right. The same way I have a right to security of the person, I have a right to education, and then government budgets for it. I pay for it through my taxes. Okay. It is not free.
All right. Sure.
Now I'll speak on behalf of all the products of an education system we were forced to go. We could have stayed home, thank you. There's some gaps that I saw that maybe it's important for me to share here. And I agree on the economic aspect that even if it was free, there was something we were paying for. there's so much that happens in our schools that we don't get to talk about most of the time. And the systems that exist in school don't even exist to protect us as students. I understand how important it is to value the teacher experience, but the student's experience in this country is completely it's animosity. I'm talking about the frustration that is caused systemically to teachers is being very much put on the students. I'm talking about there are no channels of communication and safety in the school. I'm talking about continuous abuse systemically in the school. I'm talking about a skills mismatch, because even after I graduate from secondary school, there's nowhere that the market looks at me as somebody who's appropriately supposed to settle anywhere. I have to go to university, study again, and then find a way to educate myself again to meet anywhere. I did not study about the Kenyan culture as much as I studied about everything else in the world, including the UN, including the whatever. I think I learned about Kenya very quickly in social studies, class 7, and that was the end of it. So I feel like you're right when you say we really need to interrogate, and you're right when you say that we are actually paying for something, because what we're actually paying for is that we will not use this education elsewhere other than in the classroom where money is paid.
Wait, am I hearing that education is useless?
No.
Let's
Absolutely not.
I think it's important when interrogated.
So education has to be intentional. It's not an accident. You don't just wake up and say, I'm going to school and they'll teach me whatever they will teach me. It has to be intentional. In this country, we have to articulate the intention of our education system. Because without that, then we are educating people for jobs, and then there are no jobs. We're educating people for innovation, but then if you go into that classroom, is there innovation happening? Is there really freedom to innovate? Is there freedom for these young people in classrooms to speak their minds?
Right.
It's not there. And yet we're educating them for innovation, for critical thinking. They come to the university, they struggle with critical thinking. It is the truth, ask them. When we give them tasks that require critical thinking, they struggle. Yeah. They say, where do I read that? Where do I copy that so that I give you the answer? What answer are you asking for? I say, I don't have an answer I'm asking for. I'm asking you to tell me what you think. And they struggle because the education system has been designed for yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir.
Oh, man.
Sir, yes, sir. And yet, because we haven't articulated our intention for the education system, we are perpetuating the same things that our parents were taught. The teachers we are talking about were taught in that system, that this kid must listen to me.
Right.
And it is, sir, yes, sir. So unless we interrogate and think about that a little bit more, the conversations around free education, free what? Free what? Free air, free oxygen.
I want to get to Chris Owala, to elevate to coalition and, very quickly sort of also help us set up this conversation. We were just starting, right?
Okay.
What's your frustration with the education system? As we've had, it's a problem. We should have perhaps stayed at home. Okay, I'm really
Thanks, Matt. I think this is a very useful conversation. And when you started the broken promise at the beginning of this year, we did a survey in this country, which we titled Broken Promise. And we are looking at education sector. And we are looking at the levies, the legal levies that are impacting on learning. What occasioned this? Because we realized that at grade 6, transition to grade 7, there are a lot of costs. And we are seeing that children are going to drop at tender ages. Compared to class 8, when they could drop and they could do fishing, they could do border, there was a concern that we need to rethink and look at why are the children dropping at tender age, because every time you transist, people fall. If you put many hurdles,
yes,
people must drop.
Yeah.
But if the government does not put mechanism in place, and what we found out when we rolled this survey, we realized that there are public schools that are privatized, whereby you go to a public school in a primary school, and you pay up to 60,000 in a year. Public school, we call them blue chips. Because, so what we concluded is...
What is a blue chip?
A blue chips is a
private school.
A prime school, which
blue
is
chip,
owned.
Public private school.
Yes. So the middle class are privatized schools. So what we concluded is that government has opened shops for teachers and Ministry of Education officials and TSC to collect money at the expenses of the children of Kenyans, because the entire system has collapsed. Because if, when you want to buy a bus, you charge 10,000 in a year, this is a public school. When a child wants to be admitted, you pay 20,000 schools. And they are protected by the TSC commissioners, they are protected by the ministry officials. They know these schools charge what. We have written to them. And this now what frustrates us, because as Elimu Bora, we say, if we are saying that, and I agree with the Prof and Dr. here, that this is a public funded learning, and the ministry has put resources into it. And if you move to the next level, realize that ordinarily, we are saying there's no money, and that's not true. I can demonstrate here, Smart, that as one school pays close to 2 million to heads association in a high school, 2 million in a year. And 2 million is not pocket change. And this transfer of money from a school's account to KESPA is illegal. It's not these are welfare of teachers. And you're denying a child education to entertain yourself in Mombasa. So when you're looking at this, at ECD, county government has surrendered. And we are saying, when you talk about basic education, start from ECD education. County government has stopped providing what they're supposed to do. Primary schools, if you now go to junior, it's a cash cow. Everybody open a school, the TSC come there. Every time the Ministry of Education come to school, they have to leave the school with money. The bus that are bought in school, there's no receipt, there's no accountable. So these buses that are running in schools, those are IGA for principals.
So we have a big accountability problem.
The accountability is big, Smart.
I agree. Let's hear the gentleman on the right. And we're just setting up, because I want the audience also to get involved, and my colleagues, you know, we're just setting this up.
Thank you very much. My name is Boaz Waruku. I'm the Policy and Strategy Advisor, Elimu Bora Working Group. Indeed, my colleagues are already setting the tone for this conversation, because when you say how free is free education, I think the context is being given. But I like, particularly from where we started, and Prof. Atwoli, my brother, when we talk of the foundation, why education? And it's education for who? I think for me, significantly, Kenya has not had that opportunity to clarify that. So the foundational understanding, the philosophical understanding for everyone should be on why do we educate our children? And that, to me, has been discussed severally by many people. And for us, I think right from 2017 going onward, we started by discussing how do we ensure that the products of our education system are people that all the citizens of the world would be proud of. Productive, very patriotic, and indeed innovative. I know there's a situation where we talk about what do we innovate. But for you even to reach that level, we must also set the foundations right. I think we started by the issues of the ground rules on how the Constitution provide for free and compulsory basic education, Article 53. But it should have also started with Article 43, because that is the right to education. And that is not qualified in any way, because with that, it provides the right to education for all. In fact, when I think the beneficiaries of the Kibaki free primary education, sorry, I'll not name names, including Kimani Maruge. You remember the old man who went to school?
That's classmate.
Yes, and in fact, yes, that was her classmate. Excellent. Kimani Maruge made us realize that just those small shillings you are charging in school, the 5 shillings, 10, 50, made so many to drop off. And so the aspect that even currently we are talking about lifelong learning, it means it opened that gate. In fact, those of us who are championing for free quality public education would tell you that we top it up and say for lifelong learning. Because in that case, that is when you are constantly being stimulated, being enabled really to understand the issues around education. But I also want to take you back on how the costing was done. Look at the 2003. I agree, Brother Sosion, talking about 1,020. 2003. How many years later, more than 23 years later, we are still stuck there because an addition of 400 shillings. What was costed? What are the educational needs? Right now, there's a report by the Professor Munavu Task Force. If you look at that report, I know it has not been formally adopted so that we have a policy paper. But that report suggested even an increment, for example, at the primary level, of having at least 2,240, if I can remember correctly. That is for primary school level. And then the secondary school level, it was also suggested an increase. But these are not being implemented. So significantly, we pronounce ourselves at the policy front, but we act very little. In fact, I think it is as good as just saying we'll do it, but nothing really gets to be done. The elements that also derail the education at those levels, I think part of them have been said, how our money or funds just get wasted along the way. Right. And it is everywhere. So we should be rightfully saying that the people who are shouldering the free and compulsory basic education currently are the parents and the guardians who are sponsoring them. It is just safe to say that. Okay. Because indeed, the amounts allocated are not sufficient. Those amounts cannot do anything. In fact, if you go to a restaurant, the amount allocated for a child in primary, you can barely have breakfast and feel okay, you see? So why do we allocate that?
It depends where you have the breakfast. It just depends.
I'm saying, why do we...
Point taken, boys.
Thank you.
Yes, Lati.
1,400 cannot buy you China mandasi. That's what Boaz is saying, depending on where he goes to. Now, we have a live audience here, and we have a live audience, of course, that's also following us. Everywhere on TV, on NTV, and online on NTV Kenya, on all our platforms on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and X and Instagram. And we've posted the poll asking, is free education really free? What we have so far on X, 92.3% are saying no.
Lived experiences.
That's lived experiences. On YouTube, 87% say no. Let me just sample some of what they're saying. Only in Kibaki's time, now we are dealing with a total mess. Greedy, corrupt, and lying mess. But time will tell. We are paying school fees, exam fee, and delayed help loans. On X, there's actually an ongoing debate here. Free education is only free on paper. Literally, the parents are forced to pay a lot of contentious fees. You know it, the government knows it, and all of us acknowledge that the government has failed to make it free. Now, if we just don't go into what free here is, let's just accept that free here means taxpayer funded, right? Mm-hmm. Let's acknowledge that as our definition of free, as tax funded. That means households are not removing any money to fund fees. There's somebody who has sent a message here, says, my son is in a public school in Kiambu. He is not boarding, but every term I am advised to pay 11,500 as facilitation fees. What's facilitation fees, they ask? Mind you, transport is not included. That's my responsibility. All right? So all these people are saying, out of the household, there's a lot of money that goes into it, into funding education. So if the Constitution has said that education, every child is entitled to tax-funded, compulsory education, then is it taxes that are funding our education, or is it not?
I think there's a question of transparency that is needed. I'd say also a question of education, of what Prof is saying is free, is not really free, because I think parents do expect to chip out something, but it becomes a problem when what I'm paying every other term is different It's not predicted. I don't know if I should be paying or this should be catered for by the school and all that. So there's a transparency question. But I'm largely curious about who carries then the dream for education in Kenya. This is what I'm really getting from the room tonight. And we have the biggest think tanks. We have among the biggest think tanks of education. And my question is this. There has been ongoing engagement. We've come from talking about funding of education to the curriculum of education, all of which aspects always coming with issues of implementation, of I don't know who was consulted. So is it a question of we don't have education really truly in the heart of our governance, or do we have it in the wrong hands? And how do we control who controls the picture? Does that make sense? Like, how do we control who decides? Because last week we had a conversation about the economy, and one of the things that keep coming up is that we need to skill our children for the realities that we have for the country, for a vision that we have for the country. And so how do we pin these things together? That you also have, essentially, as your need for education is to develop your critical thinking, that you can be a useful member of society, but also that it's driven. I think mostly this is always geared to have people who can work in our industries, who can behave a certain way. We are taught behavior also in school, who can comply. There's an element of compliance that comes out of school. So there's all of these things. Are we saying there's no need for that? Do we need to restructure the kind of things that the human beings we are bringing out of our systems then become in our society? And who drives that conversation? You know, who holds that responsibility? If the whole system is fooling us,
you know what?
Who names the naked, the naked king? You know what I mean?
You have a burning point before I go to the audience.
Yeah, actually, so that it can go to the audience, so that I can stop burning alone. And I think this would also be directly to Mr. Sossion. If the budget allocation is supposed to primarily be for learning, whereby the experience of the student is tax funded to its best quality, how is it that 55% of the same budget allocated to education goes to TSC? Then how does it cross-cut to teacher quality experience being bad, yet there's a whole commission that works on it? Then how does then the money allocated to teacher quality supersede the infrastructure allocations? Because where exactly are the teachers teaching if there are no buildings? And where are the students staying if there are no dormitories? Also, another thing is, if 25% of parents are employing their teachers through BOMs, then what exactly becomes the work of the TSC? I have so many issues with you, Mr. Sossion, but let me take it back to James.
It's a very educated question. I'm going to give you one because I want to go to, but you please, it's only fair that you answer this question. I go to the audience. Hang on. Yes, please, Mr. Sossion.
Yes, I think I will be very straight and clear on that, but on Professor Atwali's comment about the purpose of education. The clear philosophy of education is to ensure that we produce innovative and creative citizens who have the ability and capacity to engage in problem solving. That is the overall philosophy. And here in Kenya, Vision 2030 is that we must produce the most competitive human resource in this country. But then when you get to the delivery, the quality outcomes for Kenya, because we must look at our picture. In Africa, in terms of global competitiveness, sometimes 10 years back, we were number one in quality and access. But now we are at number 10. Back to the question of teachers and budgeting. Those are facts, because if we want to improve, and the researchers in the room will tell us, we must get proper facts and gaps in our education system so that we put the right intervention. We have been rolling out, let's not call it free education, let's call it publicly funded. And how, to the extent of public funding, it depends on the size of the purse and the investment program areas. Are we investing in infrastructure? Are we investing in learning resources? quality teaching and learning resources? How much can we avail quality teaching and learning resources in the classrooms? In not just classrooms, but quality classrooms. This is one aspect that Kibaki also rolled out, to remove old classrooms that were made of mud and timber and replace with quality structure.
They're still there.
But then, but you see, 2025, we are still grappling with how to structure funding of education and areas of investment. You are questioning why 54% goes to TSC. Professor Manyasa here has talked about parents now paying 25%. In 2014, when we did an assessment, the budget to employ teachers in schools by BOMs was about 48%. So it was almost 50-50. And I can tell you one area that there must be deliberate investment to protect quality public education, particularly in public schools.
Yeah.
When you see many private schools mushrooming, it is an indicator of a weakness in government delivery and in terms of quality. But I can tell you from my own experience and data that really I've seen over the years. In 2011, the number of teachers in public schools in our classrooms were 235,000. And it took the unions to fight and struggle and secure an agreement of gradual and substantial employment of teachers over time. So that when we are speaking today, we are talking about 400,000. And that has reduced from 48% to 25%. Okay. And I would say there is need to deliberately offload as a priority area of investment. And I would vote for that. And I've done it with the president, that we invest in employment of adequate teachers in our public schools in the classroom. Right. Because once you have the teacher in the classroom, then things of infrastructure can be handled gradually, but then you must also have the learning resources. Then very lastly, we must have two things in our education system: proper accounting and auditing. Proper accounting and auditing. We should not lose resources. Kenya has invested so much. Go to Tanzania, GDP, in terms of GDP, they're putting 2%, but here we are putting 6%, a lot of money. But you see some unscrupulous characters are making a kill because we don't have strong accounting system. Right. We must have. Then number two, we must have periodic. That is predictable. How often do we review the cost of education?
So I have to say, you're not
so that if it is done after 5 years, it is known we are doing it. In 2025, we are reviewing the cost of ECD, the cost of primary, the cost of secondary. We must have predictable and clear programs. So that is not subjected to wishful street discussion. And I think we should be orderly and professional.
I have to say you're not a very good student, Sosyon. Let's hand the microphone to the back, please. I want to hear the audience. We have a very good audience, and I want us to exercise our mind on the question of the quality of education. And as we've now been told, please give your lived experience. But most importantly, why do we think we educate anyone really in this country? Is it a thing we should do even? Should we just all stay at home and, educate ourselves however we would like to do that? Please, your name, very quickly.
Asante sana. Mimi naitwa Moi Wanguyo kutoka kule Nyandarua, mwakilishi wa walimu. Niseme kuwa tunapozungumzia kuhusu elimu, iwapo elimu Kenya ni ya bure, shule zingekuwa biashara, zingekuwa mfrisi. Yani zingekuwa zimefirisika. Kwa mfano tu, manake nimesikia tarakimu zikitajwa. Tunapotazama kwa mfano Kenya katika shule za kutwa mwaka huu kutoka Julai mpaka June, Kenya au serikali ya Kenya imeweza kufadhili shilingi 18,000 badala ya 22,000. 18,000 kwa mwaka wa kalenda kutoka Januari fika sasa hivi. Serikali imefadhili 11,000. Mimi nauliza hivi, Wajua, mnajiuliza migomo inatokea wapi na shida zinatokea wapi katika shule. Kisha tunasema kwamba tunasingizia walimu wakuu eti ndio wanatumia vibaya pesa. Tuambiane ukweli. Kusema kweli, kuna shida kubwa kule shule, manake hazifadhiliwi ipasavyo. Pesa zitatoka wapi kwa mfano za kununua vitabu, chaki, hata za kulipa walimu wa BUM? Tuache kusingizia walimu, tujue kwamba kuna shida kubwa katika shule za kutwa. Asante.
Nashukuru sana. Shule za kutwa. Shule za kutwa. Jamani, nimesikia vile kwenda shule ni muhimu. Tafadhali. Yes.
Okay. My name is Innocent Duncan Otieno, the university leader, Faculty of Education Arts. So I have this to say. We don't have free education. First, I must acknowledge that in the University of Nairobi, we are currently paying 43,000, that's accommodation fee, while in 2021, we used to pay 6,000 in the same hostels. Right now, we are paying 43,000. And yesterday, we had a privilege to meet the principal secretary, that is Dr. Moganda Inyangala. So after a serious engagement with her, she promised us that she will act upon the same issue.
Right.
And so we are calling upon the stakeholders of the University of Nairobi to act on the same issue of the accommodation in the University of Nairobi. And apart from the school
issue, yes, is accommodation.
the reduction of the accommodation fee.
Yes. Another issue. A broader one.
Just an addition.
Yes.
Apart from the accommodation fee, we also have the school fee. That's around 59,000. So 43,000 plus that accommodation 53,000 is a huge amount.
All right.
So I hope they will act upon that.
They are watching you, and I'm sure they will act upon it expeditiously. Where's the microphone? Please. Yes. The ladies. The ladies.
Okay, I'll be the last one, then I pass to the ladies.
The ladies.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Let him make his 30 seconds of that. I'm giving ladies
All right.
3. Please, the microphone should go to a lady next. Your name and what's your issues?
All right. 1 minute. My name is Thomas Kimani Wawero from Ranga. I'm a teacher representative. And a critical one to make. I am very happy by Professor Aturi's observation. It is critical that there is no creativity. And I have so many issues to speak, but let me stick to the JS. When we talk of education funding, there is a nexus between what is learned and the facilitators. We are aware that the JS teachers have been trained, but the training is very minimal, very shallow. Now we are staring at a crisis. The senior school is expecting the students next year. There is no training that has been done. We are just delaying. The government is sitting pretty cool, and we are staring at a crisis. Next year, they will come, and you are also aware that the government had removed the examination fee. What are we saying? That is number one. The second one, the last one, is when you want to kill a nation, just dilute the education system. And that is exactly what is happening.
Say that again.
When you want to destroy a nation, just dilute the education system. True, it's a fact, but let me not be so loud because the education officials are watching. Now, here we are doing the Lord's work. Yes, okay. Now, you people said if it is free, then it is not free. Yeah. You are diluting the mind. But okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Now, lastly, if you want to know the exact learning, if it is happening, just go to the classroom.
We'll go after him.
No, Sosion will not come after me. Yeah, he is protecting me.
All right.
And thank you so much, Mr. Sosion.
Okay.
Now, if you want to know if learning is happening, just go to the classroom. What is happening within the 40 minutes that is happening. Thank you very much. Let me pass to a lady.
Let's give to the ladies. I need the ladies to speak. There's a lady on my... Okay, please. Go
Good
ahead.
Evening.
Then the next one. Yes, this one.
My
please.
name is Lucy.
Oh, she started. Okay, please, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Olianga. I'm an employee with Nairobi County, and I teach in Kayole North as an ECD teacher. So when talking about CBE, it is good to talk to the right people who are with these children from the very basic step that is in ECDE.
Right. So
right from ECDE, we do competency-based education. But then when we look at it as the way it should be going, it is not going in the right direction, because it is very expensive. Because when you talk about projects, they start right from ECD. They don't go into junior secondary. We have to start from ECDE. And these projects are very costly. And then talking of capitation that you've just talked and mentioned about here, it is very rare for parents to see to it that, this capitation is very little. We have to help out in the process of education, because according to them, they believe that it is free. Right. But it is not really free. It comes up to a point whereby even giving that education to that child, you may have everything that you need to give to this child. For example, you have prepared as a teacher. But then when it comes to writing, a child does not have even a book, an exercise book. Then what does the parent say? We should not be asking for anything from them. But then when you try to inquire from the stakeholders who are up there, they tell you that there is nothing in the capitation. So it is really lacking.
Can I
but
ask you,
yes.
As a teacher, do you feel confident, comfortable, fully trained to take care of the students that you deal with every day?
Yes.
What do you train them to be?
Okay. As a practitioner in education, I know that CBC, I will say that CBC is not really bad. It is good. And we are headed towards the right direction. But the only problem and the only thing lacking is integrity. As much as we are really spearheading the fact that we want it to move on, it cannot move minus integrity. And integrity starts from the house, whereby your children, you have to tell them, you call a spade, and you say it the way it should be. A child is sent home, maybe, for example, to ask for money, or maybe 5 shillings, but because they know that I need this money for something else, they will say, we need 10 shillings. The child goes to the mother and says, I need 10 shillings. The mother says, I need 20. So it goes like that. So by the time this money reaches the school, it is not really what it was intended to do. So integrity is really lacking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's another lady here, please, on the right. Please, stand up. I'm just taking ladies first. So please, gentlemen, hang on. Integrity, right? Let's go to the ladies. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Kithenji. Speaking on free education, I don't think free education is working anymore in our country. This is because as much as there's money set aside for schools to be given and to help with the free education, there's still, when you sit in these meetings with teachers, you're supposed to pay things like teachers' allowances, teachers' incentives. Each and every month, you're supposed to pay, like, a whole year is about 12K, depending on what school you're in. There's teacher incentives. I don't know if that is right, and it's supposed to be there, because what is this free money education getting into? Because if you look at the fee structure, there is the tuition fees, there's the boarding fees, there's the activity fee. Probably your child is not even doing the activity at all. There's the transport fee. Probably she or he is in boarding. They don't even use the transport at all because the parents are going to come for them by the end of the term. So, which leaves the big question to be, where is this funding of the free education leading to? Like, where is it being used? We are not seeing its purpose at all.
All right. Next lady, please. Please hand the mic to the ladies. Yes, there's a lady there. Right. I'm just going to the ladies, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening. My name is Kandi Kefugi, a teacher trainee in Moranga Teachers College, located along Makuyu Highway. I'm speaking on behalf of over 10,000 teacher trainees in this school, in this country.
Please speak.
Yeah. So, the teacher trainees in this country are suffering.
Okay.
They are suffering. To the government of the day, I want to talk to you. Right now, as like today, where I came from school, and we were talking with our principal, and we were pleading with her, Madam, how can we pay 37,000 in our last year, and we are going for practicum, and basically we are just there for 1 term, and our previous year we paid 96,000, and we were there for tuition. So my problem is that the money that is asked for parents in teacher training colleges is a lot. We pay extra money for exams. We pay a lot of money for tuition, and we don't receive help compared to universities. That proposal has been on the table for many years, and nothing has been done. And it is really simple. Okay. There are 10,000 of us, and if money is allocated annually, that is 720 million a year. And per 3 years of our college studying, that is 2.1 billion. And sir, you said that the money allocated for the country is 702 billion. That is a fraction of that total money. And we are going to be able, because our parents are really suffering, like the amount that we started with in first year has reduced by a very big number, and it's just dropouts because of lack of fees. And we go speak people come to me because I'm a leader, and I go and speak on their behalf to the principal, and she says that she doesn't have any other way, and if we have the ability to go and maybe speak to a higher authority, maybe in the government or the sub-county director, that's the only way we are going to be helped. Okay. And now today, because I've had a platform, I'm asking the government of the day, or the CS, Mr. Migos, please do something about it. Please remember the teacher trainees, because these are the same teachers that are going to go to that school, who are going to go and provide the CBE and implement, because we are not compared to the other previous teachers. We are like the first cohort of purely CBE trained teachers, and we are the ones who are going to go to those same schools and teach the teachers there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You really should be the president of trainees in the country. You've done a fantastic job, and they've had it. I need another lady, please. Hang on, gentlemen. Hang on, gentlemen. Integrity. Hang on. We will come. We have time. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Annette. My name is Annette Easter. I'm a student from Kenyatta University. I'm in my final year pursuing Bachelor of Education, English and Literature. That's my major. So today I'll speak based not on what I've heard, not on what I've read, but what I have experienced. As a final year student, we got a chance to go to like schools and train ourselves for three months. And I will tell you what is going on there. Some students don't even have the chance to sit in a classroom. They are learning outside. When it comes to the teachers, not all of them are trained properly for this CBC. At the moment, it's called CBE, competency-based education. It moved from CBC, and I'm even concerned about that. That's the best they could do, moving it from CBC to CBE. Like, the teachers are not properly trained, and they're not ready for it. The training wasn't perfect. It was just there, but it was not perfect, right? Then when it comes to, I'm still speaking of the teachers, you can't bring a new system and still want the teachers to continue doing it without even the pay rising, Right. You can't expect teachers to move a system from one place to another without their pay being raised. teachers are not motivated at all. I can remember I was in a staff room, then the teacher, it was time for a teacher to go to class, and the teacher was like, you know what, acha wafunzwe na ulimwengu, because she was not motivated.
Oh, critical thinking.
Exactly.
Wow.
You know, you'll be taking your kids to school, but you don't know what's going on. Right. And that's not the parents' fault nor the teacher's fault. It's the government's fault, because can you see what the teachers are doing? When it comes to CBC, the teacher is the motivator, the teacher is the advisor, the teacher is the assessor. We do completely. At the moment, Gen Zs are saying, I'll just go to class and teach you. Don't come to me for advice. My role is to teach you, and period, you know? Period. So it's about motivation. The teachers need motivation. And it's crazy how even at this age, this point in time, students are learning outside. I got to realize something funny about this country, that it is easier to build a church for leaders and not schools for students. You know, that's funny. That's like a holy decision. Wow. Even God is wondering. Even God is wondering what's literally going on, you know? I feel like...
It's not giving.
Yeah, it's not giving. It's not giving at all, you know? And I also feel like when it comes to CBC, the best they could do was try to implement CBC. This is a good idea. We applaud the government for coming up with this idea and even following up. But are we really like trying to make it better? We should try to make it better, because it will really change the whole perspective.
Okay.
One last word. You can't plant a seed and walk away. You have to continuously water it. And that's what we need for competency-based education. Thank you.
My goodness. Wow. So this is the problem I have, because you're all very educated. I have a problem that every one of you have to speak. So I have to make a choice to get 30 seconds comment. Yes, this gentleman, please.
Naam, shukran sana kwa wakati ambao umenipatia. Kwanza nataka nizungumzie, nachukulia pale dadangu ameachia pale, ameongelelea kuhusu elimu ya kiumilisi CBE. Ni swala ambalo tukiangalia sana tunaelekea katika karne ambayo teknolojia inachukua sana. Serikali ya siku haijaweka mikakati ya kuendeleza elimu ya kiumilisi. Na vitu kama hivi vinafanya unapata kuwa uraslimali hauko pale vizuri, resources hawajaweka sana. Unapata kuwa tunabishana na mataifa ambao unapata elimu zao wanaendeleza kidijitali, na sisi bado tunarudi enzi za kikoloni. Alivyosema Daktari Atwoli kuwa ni nini natupeleka shuleni, msingi gani ambayo inatupeleka shuleni. Tunazingatia ukiritimba wa kikoloni tunaleta katika karne ya hivi sasa. We are going back to the old way of tuelewane. Alafu pia tuko hapa hivi tunajaribu kuzungumza kama sisi sote tuelewe kuwa. Ndio maana mimi kwangu nasema kuwa elimu ya kisasa hii, msimu ambao mtaala mpya ambao tuko nao, the new CBC yenye tuko nao, inastahili tuiendeleze, tuipatie uwezo wa kukua, kwa sababu inapatia wazazi, kama wazazi ukiangalia sana inaleta wazazi na wanafunzi wanakaa pamoja. Lakini ile ya kitambo ambao tulikuwa tuna cram, we are cramming so that we go back to school, so that we pass exam, that was not the main purpose. Mfumo mpya ambao umeletwa, mtaala mpya ambao umeletwa inafanya wazazi na wanafunzi wanajua. Sitaki nikuwe kama mtetezi wa anga, lakini zangu zimekuwa tu kwa karatasi. Nataka nionekane kama nimekubuhu kufanya kitu, I'm so much endorse ama nimeelewa kitu kifulani, niende pale niifanye kama mtaalamu ambao nimeelewa. Kama wewe mwanahabari, nisikuwe tu wewe mwanahabari kwa karatasi. Unaweza dadavua vitu vyako kama mwanahabari jinsi mnavyofanya hivi. Na hiyo ndo yangu basi.
Hivyo vile amesema. Exactly like that.
Good evening.
Yeah.
My name is Xavier Komboka. I'm a finalist in the Kenyatta University. And I think the main issue is we are introducing a new system to even teachers that don't understand the system, what the system means. I think we only have 2 slots of teachers that have been very well trained for CBC. The whole point of CBE is making it learner-centered. How is it going to be learner-centered if you have 1 teacher ratio to like a students, like 60 students in 1 class, and you still have to identify and cater for needs, like personal needs of each and every student, 1 teacher to a ratio of 60 students. And then the same teachers, the whole education that was done, the CBE as they were also being introduced, was very shoddy work, because you're being told, okay, you're supposed to incorporate maybe digital literacy. That's all they're being told. In CBE, we're incorporating digital literacy. Coming to class, they don't even know how to operate projectors themselves, and they're supposed to use the same projectors to help the learners. They don't even have electricity. We were going far talking about the whole. There's a lot of problems. They had their idea. As my friend has said here, watering it is now a problem. You had the idea, please let's try and water it. Okay. We only have 2 slots of teachers that are very well trained, and we are still also suffering with the school fees issue, which is not adding up. It's not making sense at all.
Okay, great. So you see, this is actually a problem. I need to leave in less than 2 minutes, unless you have something really burning. Can you execute in 20 seconds? Okay, sawa. 20 seconds, please.
I'll start it from where President Ruto picked it. you know, let's be honest. We are honest here. You know, when President appoints people like Mr. Sosion, these are people who have experience in education. These are people who have been suffering with the same teachers and parents on the ground. But I'm shocked you find people like Mr. Sosion, when they come to the ground, they offer solutions. But when with the president and the CS of education, they don't give those solutions. You see, for instance, you know, I have a lot of problems. Because of time, I'll need to.
Yes,
you see,
practical problem.
You see, this CBC, now CBE, a commission was formed immediately when President Ruto took over the presidency. The commission did not focus on the real things that is happening on the ground. We are misusing the public participation in Kenya, whereby they don't come to the ground to take the real issues, what the government needs. That's why we have problem. It's like we just adopted a very progressive system, but we forgot a heart of resources, a heart of equity, a heart of training, you know? So that's why it's a very expensive, it's becoming very expensive to the parents, because the government has took a back seat. The parents are now the ones who are running the education system of Kenya. And that's the reality on the ground.
Thank you very much. Yes. And this has to be the absolute final thing. Please tell us something that can take us home. Please.
Okay, my name is Mary Mweni. I'm a student from the University of Nairobi, Kiku campus, taking English and Literature. He's my boss. I'm the vice chair. Okay. So my takeaway from this discussion is there is no free education, and we need transparency and accountability. But to which office? Is it the Minister of Education? Is it the Government of Kenya? Is it the TSC? Which office is that? Because at the end of the year, there is allocation of funds. Ni shule zinakula hizo pesa ama? Because hizo shule utapata they have different fee structure zao. Because my school I used to pay around 3K, but size shafika 5K, you know? That's the question. Which office are we seeking the accountability and the transparency? As we go back to the CBE, I have experienced the teaching in 2 schools. Shule sai, hata unaenda unapata shule haina mwalimu wa music. Yeah. Na hiyo subject iko kwa timetable. Inafika tu mwalimu anaenda mwimbi waimbe shairi ama poem, na hivyo ndo siku imepita. I went to a certain school, and by the administration was just begging us because we are fresh from the university. They want us to go and teach the creative arts. I don't know what is creative arts. I don't know music, to be honest. But that administration will force you and any other teacher to go and teach that subject, something that you don't know. So, Government of Kenya, the office that is responsible for that,
what are we doing to our children? Huyu mwanafunzi anatoka that class, anatoka hapa nje. Wewe uko hapa umesema umefunza mwanafunzi, but totally that child hajapata shule, hajapata anything in that school because there is no resources. Walimu wako, but they don't know what they are going to teach. Thank you.
Okay. So you know, even a good class has to come to an end.
Bell has rung.
Yes. It's funny.
Suleiman Salim is my name. I'm a teacher from Murang'a County. And I just have one issue. I would not wish to repeat what my colleagues have said, but I would wish to pick where Madam said that where a teacher said, wacha watoto wafunzwe na ulimwengu. And I would wish to demystify that or break it down to you. That a Kenyan teacher in our country right now is broken. And I would wish, because we have Sosion in the building, and I will wish to tell you, Mr. Sosion, that you are celebrated for the work you did. But this is the question we're asking. The union has a simple responsibility of negotiating for teachers. But the question is, and this is a fact, that we have some officials in the Kuppet National Office who sit again in the national political party, the national ruling political party. We have one member who is in Kuppet, who is an official in the Kuppet Union, who is supposed to be fighting for the rights of teachers, and he is again the assistant secretary in the UDA party, which I know Sosion is very familiar with. So how do we expect such a person to take the plight of teachers to the same table, and yet the people he's supposed to present issues to are his bosses? So what we are saying here, we could be speaking a lot, but Sosion knows that the head, the fish has rotten from the head. And that's why things are not working.
Okay.
He said, as I finish, my brother,
yes.
She said that the teacher said, afunzwe na ulimwengu. Let me tell you this. A teacher currently is, in this country, is very demotivated. Right. A teacher cannot access medical services. We have deducted our medical allowances, yet we have some clinics in the name of bliss with no qualified doctors. Our ladies in the house can tell you, if you need gynecologist services, you need to pocket some extra cash to go to doctors' plazas. If you have a kid, you need to access a pediatrician. Your amount of money which is deducted every month cannot help you. This is a teacher who has stagnated in the same job group for the last 10 to 15 years. These are teachers who are seeing their profession being mutilated in public. Right now, Mr. Sosion, being a member of parliament, he knows very well that the Teacher Service Commission has lost its mandate in this country. Who are employing teachers currently as we speak? Members of parliament. Are the people who are employing teachers in public rallies, in burials, in funerals? Last time we saw what happened in Kisumu. A member of parliament parading graduates, abusing them in front of the whole society. And yet we cannot address such administrative issues. What I can say is this, that the teacher of this country is demotivated. On Friday, my brothers and sisters panelists, we were brought forth a collective bargaining agreement, which did not have any monetary value to the Kenyan teacher. And you see, we were somewhere, and these leaders are saying, Sosion, that they were told, he said that they sign or they leave. Have we reached a place where the unionists who are supposed to fight for our rights are helpless? The only thing they can celebrate and tell us in broad daylight is that they fought for our ladies to have 2 hours per day kwenda kunyonyesha watoto. Surely, have we reached a place whereby teachers cannot have any monetary value in their pay slips? So soon we have a problem in the Kuppet leadership, and like you said, the problem is our leaders, from the top to the bottom. Right. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. So please bring the microphone to the front, or the microphone. So this is the promise that we are unable to exhaust all the issues today. So we'll make the promise that we'll have this discussion again so that we can really clarify and finish the issues. But it will be remiss without having a minute each from my panelists to close this out. And it's a minute, so I'm timing you. It really is a minute. Please be a good student.
Seconds. Quality education equals to quality teachers plus quality teaching and learning resources plus quality infrastructure. That is simple mathematics. Without looking at those three variables and investing in those three investment areas, then we are doing nothing. As a country, we have an opportunity to truly deliver equitable, quality education for all our children in this country.
Very well done. Dr. Manyasa, same time.
Thank you. I will address my young sister here. KU is my alma mater, and I'm so sorry to you that you went to the worst place one could be sent for teaching practice. Yeah, those devils you met in that school don't represent the teachers of Kenya. I have connection to 90% of the schools in this country, and I know that against all odds, teachers are working very hard to make sure that they are helping the children that they meet every day. Those who prefer to sit in the staff room and say the children should pass through school and be taught na ulimwengu, allow me to say this. I went to school. My worst performed subject was biology. Yeah? And yet, I got a C-, and it was the best grade in the school that year. And we were taught by the deputy principal. He had exactly this attitude. Mr. Haddison Mhando, I'm not...
You remember his name?
Yes, we all remember him. Because he ran his shop and didn't teach. Yeah, he taught us biology from Form 1 to Form 4. Out of 16 topics that we were supposed to cover, by the time we sat our KCSE, we had done 4 topics. Jesus. Yeah, I got a C- in biology. It was my worst grade. It was the best in the school in our year. As I speak now, Mhando's children didn't finish school. They dropped out. Yeah, we didn't curse him. But there is God in heaven. His children didn't finish school. They tried. The teachers in the school I went to tried to help those children to say they have been expelled everywhere, but this is a former colleague, let's help these children. They couldn't. Okay. There is always a response to every action. Okay. I'm sorry that you are given that kind of training in the school where you are sent for training. That is the place one should never go for training. But aside from that, I think we have made, and I want to correct my senior associate, we can't say our schools are supposed to produce. That is the mindset that was planted by, I don't know who, that schools are supposed to be factories that produce. And I go to forums and I hear people saying, you must produce. Schools cannot produce. An education system cannot produce. You get education for 3 things. You get education to survive, you get education to thrive, and you get education to live at peace with people and planet. We must understand that basis for education and forget turning our schools into factories.
All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Manyasa, thank you very much. Your final word.
Thanks a lot. But I think one of the things that we need not to forget is that every child needs a motivated, qualified teacher. Very principle, very basic. A teacher must be motivated and qualified. Okay. If you don't have that, smart, there's no learning taking place. 2, as we close, that teachers are working under, ordinary class teacher are working under difficult conditions in Kenya. The people who enjoys the loot are the people in the management and the ministry and TC officials. And this need to be called out because a lot of teachers are committing suicide, a lot of teachers are working long distance. If you get a lady who is lactating, you have no time for your child because you are working as a slave. You stand the whole day, but the reward is less. And because government does not listen to you, if you are sick, the employer does not listen to you. So we need welfare of the teachers to be looked at. But last but not least, this country, we have killed audits in schools. We have killed quality assurance, and they are deliberate so that people in the management can loot and get rich. Teachers are building hotels daily, they are building clubs, and we are seeing there's no money. That's not the reality. Thank you.
All right. Prof, take us home.
Thank you very much, James, and the panelists and the team. I think I have a certain condition that doesn't allow me to abide in dishonesty. It's maybe it's a mental condition, maybe it's a
you should see a psychiatrist.
an
You know one.
existential problem.
Yeah.
I see one every morning.
Yes, you
I see one every morning in the mirror. And I want to say this. So a lot of the problems we're having in this country, including in the education system, go down fundamentally to our own agreement on what it means to be human and what it means to be Kenyan. We have not agreed on that yet. And yet we are fashioning an education system to try and produce good humans. But we haven't agreed on what it means to be human. Today, here in Nairobi, we discuss education systems of schools in an urban setting where there are classrooms, where there are computers and tablets and so on, and we fashion that to mean this is an education system for the entire country. And you go into parts of this country where there are no classrooms, there's no electricity, there's no water, and kids are learning under trees and sitting on stones. And they're using the same education system. It is completely dishonest for us to pretend that we are delivering an equitable, good education system which will produce innovators who are digitally literate in West Pokot, in Turkana, in Wajir, in Mandera, under trees. It is absolutely dishonest, and I do not think we should abide that in conversations like this. I think at the end of the day, we have to fix our Kenyanness. We have to fix our values, and those values will guide how we design our education system. What we are calling CBE, CBC, and calling a very good system is not a system that is born out of internalized values of what it is to be Kenyan and believe that that guy in West Pokot is equal to the guy in Muthaiga. We haven't reached there yet. And so we pretend a lot sitting in forums like this, talking about an elite education system that does not speak to the vast majority of the people in this country, which is why it remains pieces of writing on paper and is not seen in practice. And it's what the young lady has seen when she has been taught in classroom how to teach and educate and CBC and so on, and then she goes into a place where there are no classrooms. And then she's wondering, how do I apply what I have been taught in class here? I disagree with Dr. Manyasa that was the wrong place for her to go. I think it's the right place for her to go. It represents the actual education system on the ground. She has received a real education about what the education system looks like in this country. We need to fix that so that when she goes there, she gets a better education. I think that is what we must be speaking about, rather than speaking about 10 shillings being sent to a primary school in Baringo that doesn't exist. Thank you very much.
Just the last word. Just the last word. My humble appeal is that as we discuss all these issues, please let the government create that environment which is conducive for these discussions. Open doors, open minds, but implementing good ideas which are being proposed. Second, let us just ensure that all our children who are away from school as we speak, almost 3.5 million of them, they deserve to actualize their right to free and compulsory basic education. Finally, it is important for us to try and make an outreach to particularly those young ones who have been used as guinea pigs within the CBC process. Right now, the headache of transition is really at our doorsteps. Many have seen how difficult it is even to select school, not necessarily to select, but to identify which schools they would like to go to. How are we helping them? You've seen that more than 3,000 of those schools have not been selected. Right. We actually need to know what really happened. The clear message I'm sending is that can we do a continuous outreach? Just ensure that when the government speaks, when the agencies speak, they speak the truth, they speak what is on the ground, and we correct if there's a mistake, other than keeping on to cover the very mistakes that we see, which keep following us one after the other. And finally, I think it is the teachers' issue, because right now, people have not been accurate with figures. I've heard people talking about we are almost fully capacitated.
but we have a teacher deficit of more than 100,000 as we speak. More than 100,000 because what you're being told that we have recruited so many, the politicians who are dishing out some of those recruitment letters and all that, you cannot even know how many have been recruited. Okay. Let us give the TSC and all the other state agencies the power that they deserve, that they need to have independently to implement their mandates. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey. So even the audience on digital platforms is just as active. I'm not going to sample the comments because there are many. I'm just going to read one. It's not easy being a principal.
Would you like first our editor of education just to give his absolute final word?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Smart. For me, what I would like to say as a last word is that we need to concentrate a lot on value-based education. All these things we are talking about, why do we take the children to school, what do we want them to learn and all that, we may teach all those things, but as long as the children do not have the correct values, the right ethics, and we should remember that ethics are caught, values are caught, not taught. So as long as we don't have the right attitudes, the right behavior, we'll not be doing anything to our children. Then the last thing, let us not celebrate the privatization of schools, because it is going in to fill a gap. Education is a public good that is supposed to be offered by the government through the taxpayers' money. Gone are the days when you would find teachers in public schools taking their children to the very schools that they teach. But the moment you find teachers in public schools taking their children to private schools to be taught by other teachers, then we have a serious problem. And that, for me, is a cost that we are paying as a country. And that cost, we'll feel it much, much later. The cost of education is to have the kind of education we're having right now, is that we risk having a population that is without ethics, that has no values, that has no skills to survive, and also cannot live with other members of the society. Thank you.
Mwalimu, what you've said is also coming here with Richard, who says it's not easy being a principal of a school. Currently, it's a sad state of affairs. Let the government meet its obligation. Otherwise, what we are seeing now is a disaster. Inadequate teachers, no labs, especially in JS schools, demoralized teaching staff who are given a salary increment of 400. We had asked the question on our digital platforms, is free education really free? Over 80% across all platforms have said no. And I'd like to just say this, James, that I agree with what Professor Lukoya Atwoli is saying, just by listening to our conversations today and everything that we know about our education system. It's clear that there is tokenistic thinking and approach to our education, especially in public schools. Why? Because the policymakers are not consumers of this thing that they are thinking about, that they're legislating on, that they are allocating finances for. So for them, it's weka pesa hapa kidogo to support those people. Unfortunately, they then get to the other side and they're the ones who benefit from the money. Education in Kenya is a criminal enterprise.
Sheesh.
I think what I'm taking in a very short way from the conversations that we've had is the need to name and then consequently prioritize the investment areas of how we are funding our education system. It's coming out clearly, and what is at the core of this, or the drivers and the caretakers of this vision, are the teachers. So the teacher training, teacher welfare, enrollment, all these issues are at the core of this. So enumerating or mentioning and prioritizing the investment areas so that, you know what must be accounted for, what must be budgeted for, and then how are we using technology? And I know this conversation can't end or expand at this moment. How are you using technology, or how can we use technology to bridge the gap? Is this something we can look at in future? That's my last word.
How should you take this from Zaha?
Well, as a product of this very education we have discussed for more than an hour, I think my last word is, I currently believe and I understand that through my experience, education was never free. However, I do believe my taxes, right now that I'm an adult, should do the following: create a quality environment to study and teach, create a healthy, motivated teacher experience for me to be taught, and a wholesome, care-centered student upkeeping approach in the school for me to survive. And for this particular experience, to fuel a sustainable education and lifelong learning experience for every single child in Kenya. Well, because another warning I'd want to give government, this free education gave us access to information that told us to protest now. Gen Alphas might come for you to answer the questions of why the questions we have raised you never answered. So for the sake of the future peace of this country, and before Gen Alphas actually use AI drastically later, fix the amends, clean the shop, sell off the bandits, and let us have education as we are mandated to have in the Constitution.
Well, Gen Alpha is actually the 8-year-olds, by the way. And then there's Gen Betas who are like a year older. So they're all coming for everyone. So this is how we summarize this conversation. As we've agreed, it's very complex, has different facets, and so we have to be absolutely nuanced in how we answer the question tonight. How free is this free basic education? From what we've had in the last hour and a half, is that it's actually not free if you don't include the component of teachers, the component of parents, and the students and the learning outcomes. But I want us to consider on three things. What's required, if you look at the costings on your screen, what's required actually for you to get a proper quality outcome from as a learner. But then there is what is budgeted for. It's a separate thing, all right? And then finally, it is what is disbursed. So for you to answer this question, you have to look at three areas. What's required for you to get proper quality outcomes, then what is budgeted for, what we say we will do it when we do our budgets, then finally what government actually disburses and sends home. Now, the last one is that the free, basic, and compulsory education is not free because what is disbursed is way below what is required. And that is the last word. My name is James Smart. Have a lovely night. We'll do this again next week on Tuesday at the same station. Thank you for being a fantastic, fantastic audience. And injectors. Yes. Thank you.